Okay. Um. So, where's my fucking thing? There it is. Okay, so, today, good morning. Hello, hello, hello. Today, for our episode of the show, let me just put some music on. And this is the fun part where my headphones are working. Oh wait, I haven't actually plugged them in. Good stuff. So what I wanted to do was to talk about, I have planted tomatoes a little while ago, and they started coming out really well. I had some issues with aphids, which we dealt with last week. I used, I can't reach it from here, but I use this this Derris dust stuff, which is like a it's an organic way to. There we go. It's an organic way to deal with pests and shit like that. We put some of the Derris dust on the tomatoes. Aphids fucking gone, dead. So that was really cool. I was kind of surprised at how fast they died off. So what we've got basically now is some tomatoes. I've got 3 main tomato plants. One of them I've already transplanted into its own pot. And what I did was I went to Bunnings. Hang on, let me just grab the thinger. So I got, because the pots that I have at the moment are pretty small. They're sort of, I don't know, that big. That big, maybe? And about that deep. So they're not exactly huge. So I got, I got these. I got 4 of these. They're really, really deep. Because the problem with my house at the moment is that I can't really make like a proper garden bed anywhere. So what I have to do is I have to have most stuff in big pots. So got some big pots for tomatoes. Once you can do tomatoes in pots, they're fine, but you have to be careful with the way they grow. You have to trim them back a little bit. You have to be careful of their fertilization, that kind of stuff, because being in a pot, it doesn't really sort of circle of life the nutrients back. Basically, because it's in a static sort of environment, you don't get all the nutrients cycling through like you would if it was out in the wild, where, you know, birds poop and, you know, all sorts of natural fertilization comes through, natural rain, all this kind of stuff. So when you've got stuff in a pot, you have to be careful about the plants and their nutrients and this kind of stuff, especially with tomatoes, because of course everyone wants really big tomatoes, and if you're not careful with their nutrients, you'll get little shitty ones. So you have to be really careful with that kind of stuff. But what we'll do is what I'm going to do is I'm going to transplant. I'll show you 2 of the tomatoes that I'm going to be transplanting really quickly, because there's 2 particular things about transplanting I want to show you guys. So I'm going to do the transplant now, and then I'll show you something a little bit later on. I got some cool stuff from Bunnings, which I'll talk about a little bit after. And of course we will talk about staking tomatoes, because you do need to stake them, because they're a little bit flimsy, at least when they're growing. When they get a little bit bigger, they actually do get a lot stronger when it comes to stabilization. They become very viney in a way, depending on which type you get, and they are pretty stable when it comes to just general growing, you know, because of course naturally you don't have stakes everywhere for the tomatoes to grow on. So what I'll do, I will be back in a jiffy. I'll grab the other tomatoes. I should have brought them in earlier, that was really silly, but I'll show you the tomatoes and then I'll transplant them, and then we'll get on to the other stuff. So back in 2 ticks. So, as you can see, the tomatoes have actually done quite well. I had 3 in this pot. There was actually 1 that died because of the aphids. Hang on, let me put camera number 2 on. You can't really see it. It's this little thing down here. This is the one that died. Can't really see it, but oh well. But yeah, they've done okay. I got some sticks and made natural stakes for it. But this time I've got some proper stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to transplant these two main ones. Then obviously I'm going to have to recycle the pot for something else. And yeah, so I'll just go do that. It'll take like 2 minutes or something. If anyone comes in asking questions in the chat, please let them know that I'll be back in a second. Alright, just hold on a tick.
Yeah! Woo! He loved that! Just like an angel, your skin makes me cry. You float like a feather in a beautiful world. I wish I was special. You're so very special. I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. I don't care if it hurts. I wanna have control. I want a perfect body. I want a perfect soul. I want you to notice when I'm not around. You're so very special. I wish I was special, but I'm a creep.
Alright. So I have moved the two big tomatoes over to their own little one of those big pots, and we will have a look at what happens to plants when they get transplanted like that. A little bit later, towards the end of whatever this shit is. So what I wanted to go over next was oh, some of the other plants that I had and how they're going. Because some of you guys have been watching this show for a little while, so I thought I'd give you some updates on what's been going on, and here is one of them. Let me just make some space. Alright, I don't think the cameras are set up properly for this, but whatever. Okay, so, a while ago, when I first sort of started growing the plants and shit, we had quite a lot of different stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of it didn't work, because some of it was planted in winter, and of course, a lot of plants aren't big on winter. Unfortunately, one of the new ones I got, Cabbage, is actually a winter thing, and I should have planted those then, but whatever. So one of the two surviving things that actually did really, really well were this coriander, which this camera's not very good, is it? You can't really see things properly. It's got shitty definition. Alright, so we got some coriander, which is of course basically a type of herb. It likes to run along the ground, and it can get taller. As you can see, there are some really tall plants here. Stems here that come up. But you can sort of just snap some off and put it in your food to make some nice various little herb additions to food. Another thing we also have over here, I'm not really sure what's going on with these. These are meant to be sweet cherry capsicums, basically little baby capsicums in a way, and they're okay. Like, they're not dead, but they're not exactly growing the fastest. So what I'm going to do is I'll give them some more fertilization. They've been watered properly. It's just that they're growing really slowly. I'm assuming these are actually meant to be planted in winter. And as you can see, I actually got some problems with the leaves splitting a bit, so there's some issues there. So I got to figure out what's going on with that. But I still got seeds for these, so you know, if they die off or whatever before they become useful, then that's okay, because I can just do it again. Just random bugs in the dirt. But yeah, so these are the sort of the main things that have actually been okay when it comes to surviving for a while. Production value. So these are doing okay. I do have other herbs which I am going to plant again, but what we're going to do is actually do we're going to plant some lettuce, and I'll do like half one of the seed racks of lettuce, and then we'll do the others with the other herbs later on. So yeah, I mean, this sort of stuff, this is one thing that I wanted to mention about doing this sort of gardening stuff, is that it's really easy and surprisingly cheap to do. Like, you don't have to go all the full bells and whistles to make the plants actually work and all this kind of shit. It's actually, you know, I went and got a bunch of stuff, I'll talk about it in a second, a bunch of stuff from Bunnings, which, if you're not from Australia, Bunnings is like just a big sort of hardware, gardening, outdoor living, all that sort of do-it-yourself kind of store. I don't know what the equivalents are in your respective countries, but it's actually really cheap. It's really, really cheap. So, you know, I would really advocate doing it yourself. If you've got time and you've got some, you don't even have to have room. Like, the reason that I'm doing everything in pots is because I have no fucking room out in the backyard. I've got like a couple of garden beds that are really, really bad for working vegetables and herbs and that kind of stuff, so I've just said fuck it, we'll just do it in pots and figure out a way to do it. So um, there are always ways to do it, and there's really nothing better than grabbing some coriander, grabbing some fresh tomatoes or whatever, if it's summer in your respective region, and other plants and all that kind of stuff that you can use for yourself when you're cooking and doing that kind of stuff, and even if it's just for eating. Like, I mean, I remember when I was younger, going into our vegetable garden at my dad's house when I lived there, and just like grabbing a little cherry tomato off the shrubs, and it was like, this is awesome. It's like really easy. It's like old school hunter gatherer man, gathering shit from his back garden. So hardcore. I'll just put that aside for a minute. So, and yes, my shirt does say "Science, it works, bitches." Got it from ThinkGeek. Shout out to ThinkGeek because they're pretty cool. Am I in? Hello, Torask. Yeah, Bunnings is awesome. Am I in SA or WA? I'm in Victoria. It is 7:18 here, because of course we're in daylight savings. So what I wanted to mention was the stuff I got from Bunnings. As I was saying, it's really, really cheap to get all this sort of gardening stuff. I was actually really surprised. I expected all this stuff to come to a much higher amount. I'll show you what I got in total. So we got, we'll do those last so I can talk about them properly. Hang on. So I got. This is, you can't. It's 50 liters, right? It's 50 liters of Osmocote Organics vegetable and herb mix. So it's a specialty kind of potting mix with dirt. Oh, the linens will be fine. I'll just do it. I'll just clean them up again if I have to. It's like a specialty kind of mix that has organic stuff in it, which it's like a sort of self-fertilized kind of stuff, because you obviously, as we were talking about before, you do need to fertilize your plants and all that kind of stuff. So I got two of those, right? I got 4 of these massive pots. Obviously I got 2 here because the other 2 are already out the back with tomato plants in them. Now this I didn't have to buy, but I did just because I needed to. Because I need to stake the tomatoes, which we'll talk about shortly. I got some bamboo stuff, and this actually came with these sheets, which are like little. Basically, they're like plant condoms in a way. So, like, you stake the tomatoes, and then you put this around it, so that birds don't eat them, and you don't tie the plant to the stake, which is still fine to do. It's not a problem. It's just that it can be nicer if they sort of have a little bit more room. Now they are UV treated so that they don't die in the sun or melt or whatever, and so you get a bunch of these things with the bamboo stakes, which is freaking sweet. And so what I'm going to be doing is I won't do this right now on the show. I'll do it after. But pests get the plant pregnant. Yeah, pretty much they do. Especially if it's like there's a type of moth that infects lemon trees and makes these bulges in the stems and that kind of stuff. It's really freaky. But what else? Got a watering can. And now these things. So, actually, we'll do these last. So we got Charlie Carp, which is a type of fish fertilizer. Use this. Plants love fish-based fertilizer because it's got a lot of what's it called? Nostalgia. I'm sure you'll know. Oh, they've got a lot of it's got a decent amount of nitrogen and potassium in it. Now, when it comes to fertilizers, um, actually, we'll talk about the technicalities of fertilizers in a minute. So I also got this one, which is a tomato and vegetable fertilizer. It's very simple stuff. Like, where's the oh, where's the fucking opening? Oh, here it is. Whatever. They're just little pellets, basically, and they've got all types of sort of like natural chemicals that help the plants grow. Nitrate, yeah. Same. What? No, nitrogen, because you got nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But we'll get to fertilizers in a minute. I also got some lettuce seeds. This is called Great Lakes, which is a type of iceberg lettuce, something that you will always see at your supermarket. And I got cabbage, which we mentioned before, which is it's cabbage. I'm going to be using cabbage eventually to be making okonomiyaki, I think it's pronounced. I can't remember. I was linking YouTube videos of it earlier last week. But I use a lot of cabbage. I really like cabbage. It's good shit. And so all that stuff, I know it's not massive kind of stuff, but all of that stuff. Yeah, there you go. All that stuff, I thought it maybe come to 150, especially because of the potting mix. Like I got 100 liters of this potting mix, which, by the way, is not going to be enough. I actually need to go get some more. All came to $100. I was like, really? This shit's really good. So, yeah, I mean, if you've been thinking about it, it's like a really good idea to sort of do at least small self-sufficiencies, whether it be some tomato plants at the least, some lettuce at the least. Most people should be using lettuce. I mean, it's a pretty staple kind of thing. And then, if you want herbs as well, then all that kind of stuff can be thrown in. So it's pretty easy and it's pretty cheap. At least here in Australia. I don't know about other countries. Don't come back to fucking bite me if you're in, I don't know, America or something, and they're like, don't grow natural shit. Because that's fucked up. Even though the president, I'll just point out, whoa, as I go all blurry. Why have I gone all blurry? Hello, camera. There we go. Sort of. Hello, camera. There we go. Of course, the president has his own garden. Michelle Obama started that. That was a pretty cool idea, I thought. Farming Simulator Pro. So, what was I going to talk about? Oh yeah, tomatoes. So, when it comes to tomatoes, as I was saying earlier, they can be really, I suppose, weak in a way. Is a way of just sort of describing how they start off. They're very weak. So what you want to do is, as we can see down below, often what people do is they'll set up various kinds of setups for staking them. So you'll have sort of the runs where you have like a couple of stakes and then twine pulled across, and then they just sort of climb up themselves. Now, because I will be growing them in the pots, what I'm going to be doing is it's a tri-stake kind of setup where you have 3 stakes and then the plastic sheet will go around it to sort of protect them, and also to make sure that they grow up the stakes as well, to give them a little bit more stability. Because of course tomatoes, they're not like big trunk kind of trees or anything like that, so it's a good way for them to grow. So that's and as you can see in the picture, there's various ways of doing it, and then they'll start to adapt and climb up it, based on what type. As I said, there's various types of climbing tomatoes that will climb up like a vine, basically. So there's vine tomatoes like that, and then there are some that are a little bit more freestanding, but they still do need support. So it's a bit like Dota. Go to have your hard carry tomato with a support. So that's one way to look at it. But so that's, hopefully the tomatoes will be okay in the pots, people that I've spoken to, and then the things that I've read online say it's okay as long as you're very careful with it. You do have to trim them back sometimes because they do. If a tomato plant in a pot starts to get a little bit out of control, the roots can start growing through the holes in the bottom of the pot, which is obviously not the greatest thing, and it can start to cause issues. So I've got to be careful of those sorts of things. Eventually, if I don't know, if I move house or if I decide to get very sort of Farming Simulator 2013, I'll transform one of the garden beds out the back. I'll just have to dig it up and then soil it properly and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I guess that's tomatoes. And now, speaking about, we'll talk about fertilizers actually. So the two, the bottom of hanging pots. I have seen those. I have seen tomatoes in like hanging pots, and it's actually really cool. I kind of did want to try it, but I don't know, I kind of wasn't really sure. I've left that for now, but I certainly will be considering it because it looks kind of cool, and it looks like it saves a lot of room as well. If you're not sure what we're talking about there, I'll see if I can find a picture. Basically, it looks like this. If you want to have a look in chat, that's kind of what the tomatoes in a basket look like when they just sort of drape themselves over the sides and then just start growing the cherry tomatoes like that. Normally, it's a type of cherry tomato, I believe, that you'd do that with. But yeah, I've been considering trying that because it might be cool to save some room. Now and it may sound weird, given my other excuses about not having a proper vegetable patch or anything, but I don't exactly have something to hang it from. It's a really long story. Basically, my house is really, really old. The back, out the back where we have the veranda and the garage and stuff, it's actually really, really shitty. So I would just be afraid of hanging something up and it fucking pulls all the shit down. So that's I guess that's the situation with that. So just to talk about fertilizers, which we mentioned a little bit before. So when it comes to fertilizers, some people you get a little bit confused about these kinds of things. Is that when do I do it? Why do I do it? All these kinds of things. Basically, tomatoes, but any kind of plant, what they do when they, and Nostalgia I'm sure can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but when they're in the soil, their roots, not only do the roots suck up water from the soil and give it to the plant, but they also absorb nutrients just like we do. Like basically our large intestine, I think it is, or the small, no, is it the small or the large? I think it's the small. Either one of them, for us, our intestines are kind of like roots in a way that they extract nutrients from the food that we give it, which, there you go, the small. There's technical processes for it, but plants do the same thing, of course, with the roots, and they do it in the soil. So what they need is, of course, which is what we refer to as food, but of course it's also called fertilizer. So you do have to give plants fertilizer to make sure that they, as you can see here, bigger and juicier. Hey baby, this is an M15 production here on the Duckville Oil channel. You want to give the plants some food so that they can grow properly. Now, the thing about fertilizers is that there's different types based on the types of plants and the types of outcomes that you want. So, depending on the plant, various sorts of plants will need various sorts of chemicals. Now, you saw that Nostalgia and I were sort of mentioning a couple of chemicals, and of course these are, if you can post what their periodic table designation is that in the chat, then you'd get like 5 points. But so the main sort of chemicals relating to tomatoes and vegetables in general are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So the what we have with this situation is the plants they need these things, but for different reasons. Nitrogen is used for growth of basically the green parts of the plant, so the leaves, the stems, these kinds of things. So when you go and look, I don't know if you guys can see this. Hang on. So on various fertilizers, you'll get these kind of like an analysis or a there isn't one on this, but they'll have like a type of like a designation of what the balance between those three main chemicals are, and or not chemicals. Sorry, chemicals isn't the right word, is it? Nostalgia. It's like we'll just go with nutrients. But you want to have a balance between these certain things. So nitrogen, as we can see up the top here, there's like a couple of forms of nitrogen. It's got like 6.3%. Phosphorus is 3.7, and then potassium is 6%, and then there's a couple of other random stuff. Oops. There's some other random things like sulfur and calcium down the bottom, but we don't care about them. Basically, for minerals, fuck me, that's the word. I couldn't think of it. So for production kind of plants, like your vegetables and I think herbs as well. I'm not 100% sure. Keep in mind, guys, none of this is. I could be wrong with everything here. This is just stuff I've read and learned. But for things like your production plants, as we said before, nitrogen helps grow leaves and the stems and the branches and things like that. And what else? Oh, phosphorus it helps with the size. Now, phosphorus, if I remember correctly, and again, I'm sure Nostalgia can correct me, phosphorus helps with the transfer of the energy between plant cells, something along those lines. And basically that means that if you can get more energy flowing between the plants, you get bigger fruit. So in this case, for the tomatoes, you do want like a nice amount of the phosphorus, and particularly in the potassium as well, because that also helps out with general health. That helps with any plants with their general health. So just keep making sure that they're not dying to lack of nutrients and that sort of kind of stuff. Sometimes what people will do is they'll get what's called Epsom salts. You may have heard of that before. Some people, you can use it instead of normal salt, but it has more minerals in it. And we do the same thing. Like sometimes people use Epsom salts, which have more potassium in it. So if you're a person who's... there you go, the process of the photosynthesis, that's right. And so things like Epsom salts is basically a type of salt, but it has increased potassium in it, which helps with general health. So people can have that as well, like humans can have that as well, but it also helps out with plants. So people also use that kind of stuff. So that's, I guess, like a basic sort of overview of what your fertilizers are for. Normally, there's two types. You'll get you can hear it, I think. You get these little pellet things, kind of like M&Ms, and you just chuck them on the ground. You want it near the base of the plant, but not. If I remember correctly, you don't actually want it to be touching the plant, because it'll eventually disperse itself through the soil, and the plant will take it over itself. But if you actually have it like touching the plant, that's kind of bad, because it's kind of like being forced to accept the food, even if you don't actually want it. So the other option is also a liquid-based fertilizer source, and in this case, as I mentioned before, I got some Charlie Carp. Many plants, especially like vegetables and this kind of stuff, do like fish fertilizers. As we said before, it's got a lot of potassium in it, which is always quite nice. So you can't really see that, it's too small. But what you do, you can just get a capful of this fish stuff, put it in your watering can, which I threw away, and then you just water it on, put some near the roots, and then also you can put some on the leaves and that kind of stuff for direct application, but I'm not exactly sure if that helps out as much. So if you want more information about fertilizer-based stuff, then you can go here. That's a good one for tomatoes. And then this chick here, I'm just going to link that because she was talking about, that's if you have a look at that video on YouTube, she's actually had some wonderful growth with her tomato plants. This basically, as she said, it's a jungle. So eventually tomatoes can get that big, which is really cool. So that's our fertilizers talk. The thing with the fish fertilizer, as I'm sure you can imagine by now, it kind of smells a bit funky. So as long as you can handle that, it's really good for plants. Plants love it. The other option, there's seaweed fertilizer, which is kind of a similar sort of thing. It has different mineral levels, but it's still pretty damn good, especially as a liquid fertilizer. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. Hang on, let me just show you guys this.
Smell my size, do you?
It's Yoda.
For 800 years have I trained Jedi.
I thought I'd just throw that out there for you guys. Oh, fuck me. Another thing I got was this little, it's like a punnet tray for growing seedlings in. And we'll actually be using this in a memento, but first we'll just talk about a couple of things. Very good, Sparkies. Don't want to be mined out, that's bad. So, Cabbage. As I mentioned before, Cabbage is pretty cool. I want to be using it for okonomiyaki, or whatever it was. Fire cake mined out, that's true. But these kinds of little seed things only cost like $2. I think it's pretty good. You can just go and grab some, plant them. If they work, then that's good. If they don't, then whatever. With cabbage, however, I can't plant these now because they're meant to be planted in sort of like an early autumn, or later in winter. So unfortunately for me, I'm actually past both of those. So in April next year, my grandma told me, is the best time here in Australia to do cabbage. So we'll be doing cabbage April next year. Make sure you book it in. But yeah, cabbage of course is a really, really nice sort of versatile kind of vegetable that can be used in all sorts of things. You can have it raw, you can steam it, you can cook it in stir fries. You can, as we said, make the okonomiyaki, or whatever the fucking word is, the Japanese pancake thing, whatever it is. Yeah, no, exactly. The problem with being on the other side of the planet. So the other thing that I got is you should plant some. It's worth it. The other thing is the Great Lakes lettuce, which, as I said, is a version of iceberg lettuce. Which that one down there, that one is actually an iceberg. The Great Lakes is a little bit different, despite how it looks on this package. It's kind of false advertising. The Great Lakes doesn't have, like, you know when you go to the shops and like the iceberg lettuce has a big, it's got that head sort of thing, kind of like a cabbage in a way. Great Lakes isn't always like that. It doesn't have a very dense sort of centralized head bit, but it does have really broad leaves, which is the thing that I really want because for me, I use the leaves instead of bread because I don't eat bread, despite being a duck. So this one is actually really good for me, and we can actually plant this one. So what we'll do, I do need to grab some soil, so I'll just be back in a jiffy, and what we're doing is planting something. Yeah, we're just going to use half of these rack things. Oh, these are basically egg cartons. I didn't realise. I might be able to make my own version with egg cartons. That's a cool idea. Anyway, yeah, I don't eat bread and I don't eat rice. Think about that for a minute. Think about all the other things I can't eat because I don't eat many carbohydrates. And get back to me with what the worst thing is. Hang on a second.
Thanks. Thank you.
That's right, T minus keto duck. Noodles? No. Technically I can have pasta because there's almond flour types of pasta, which I can have, but I tried cooking with it once and almond flour pasta, it doesn't seem to hold as much as wheat pasta does, so it was I made carbonara, which I love and I kind of miss, but it didn't really work too well. I have to show someone else my carbonara recipe one day, and then they can carry on my legacy. So I've got our dirt basically, and what we're gonna do. Let's open it up a little bit more. Noodles, what's the point of living? Don't you guys think you're overplaying it just a little bit? Come on, guys, give me a break. Ah! This works. How long ago did you go for keto? About 12 months ago. Do you have many cravings? Yeah, quite a lot. I have cheat days because I'm just a very weak person when it comes to that kind of stuff with food. But I do have cravings quite a lot for I haven't actually had carbonara in a very long time, but I have had cravings for it quite a lot. But yeah, I mean, I'm a lot healthier than I used to be, which is the main thing I actually care about. So what we're doing, if you hadn't noticed, is just filling up these punnets just a tiny bit. I'm not going all the way. I'm not trying to. Somehow I still am. This fucking soil has these little bits of like tan bark in it. I don't want that shit. So with planting these seeds for lettuce, best way to do it, if you get these little seed punnet things, what you can do is you can just, so we put it in here. And then what you do, let me move my massive thing of soil over, and we get our little packet, shake it up so that the seeds fall down to the bottom instead of being all the way up here. And now, in this packet, 1,250 seeds, so there's quite a lot in here. So what I'll do, I'm gonna do this, because like I do want to spread a few so that you can get like a couple of seedlings popping up, but I also don't really want to have all the seedlings in this one punnet. But whatever, we'll just kind of like this, we'll just hold it up. Okay. Oh, it's inside another packet. Thanks for that. Fucking waste. But yeah, if anyone has any questions about keto or low carbohydrate based diets, just ask. It's all good. Fucking, there's a seed like right up in the top corner. Ah. Alright. This is going to be really frustrating to deal with. Especially considering my shaky hands. I'm sure you have all seen my shaky hands at work.
Thanks.
They're quite
Here for
fantastic.
Brenda.
Oh shit. I just put like 20 in one fucking thing. Okay, so you put a few of the seeds in each of the punnets. At least this is what I was told. Put a few of the seeds in. Oops. How well you guys can't really see it. Oh well. What did you find you like best as meals with so many things off the list of edibles? Well, you can eat like as much bacon as you want, so I have bacon all the time. So that's a really cool thing. Is bacon is awesome. It's kind of like when people sort of ask about it and they kind of say, well, do you like eat? Do you eat nothing or something like that? There's actually still so much stuff I can eat. I can have fucking bacon all the time. I can have basically anything that doesn't have carbohydrates or anything with sugar or based on wheat. And a lot of the time, it's basically things in boxes. So it's a really weird way to put it, but it is. And so, you know, I can still have I still have McDonald's quite a lot. All you need to do is take the bun off and then just eat the burger. It's actually really good. I have like a double quarter pounder, and it's fine because that's actually really good because it's got a lot of fat, it's got a lot of protein, which is what you have on a low carbohydrate diet. So what we do is we have planted the seeds. You put a tiny little bit of the soil on top of them. So you don't want to like flatten them down. You want to give them just a little bit of darkness to grow, because as far as I remember, seeds need a little bit of light and also a little bit of darkness to help them grow. I could be making shit up, but whatever. That's more fucking tan back there. Okay. Alright, so these particular seeds, lettuce seeds like this, take about I believe it's about 7 days roughly before you will see some pop up. So it's not too long. And then so as the seedlings go along, let me just get rid of this dirt. I'm like a real stickler for washing my hands, so this is kind of awkward for me not being able to wash my hands right now. I'll just finish this little rant and then I'll go wash my hands and come back. So it takes about 7 to 10 days. It sort of depends, I guess. Let me just double check. Seedlings emerge 6 to 10 days. Yeah. So about a week or so. Now the cool thing about this setup is that we've got a little base for the tray to sit in, and then you can actually water. Where is it? I don't have it here, but I have a little spray bottle, and we'll just spray the seedlings a little bit to give them just a little bit of water to work with, because this soil is actually already pretty moist for it's just standard soil. But anyway, and there, then, you know, get your little greenhouse thingy that goes over the top, and bam, you're gonna have seedlings. So after, I think it's around about 2 or 3 weeks, it sort of depends on the seedlings.
Thank you. Thank you.
Doesn't actually say, but normally it's about after about 2 or 3 weeks. Once the seedlings have gained just a tiny bit of height, then you can thin them out and put them in their own pots as well. So I'll just water the human first too, because I'm really thirsty. Okay. So it's basically our session for today. What I wanted to do was I wanted to show you guys what's called transplant shock from when you move when you transplant a plant, basically. They sort of react very severely sometimes to moving when you move their positions. Thank you, Jawbone. I appreciate that with my shitty beard. They will wilt like quite a lot. So what we're gonna do is, it's been about nearly an hour, so I might just check this, and then if they're fine, then we're all good, and we'll finish up. If not, we'll have a quick look at the plants. But yeah, so when it comes to transplant shock, just make sure that your plants are in a safe spot so that they don't, you know, wind and that kind of stuff, because when they're wilting, they're a little bit more exposed. Yeah, so just give me a tick, I'll go check on the tomatoes that we transplanted this earlier on. I'll be back.
Little boy blue and the man in the moon. When you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when, but we'll get together then. You know we'll have a good time then. When he came from college just the other day, so much like a man, I just had to say, son, I'm proud of you. Can you sit for a while? He shook his head and he said with a smile, what I'd really like, Dad, is to borrow the car keys. See you later, can I have them, please? And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man in the moon. When you're coming home, son, I don't know when, but we'll get together then, Dad. We're gonna have a good time then.
Alright, so this is one of our tomato plants. Hang on, let me close the door.
Long since you're tired, my son's moved away.
There you go. So this is the one that we transplanted. It's in its, as you can see, a very big pot. Like it's fucking massive compared to the last one it was in. And it's actually fine. I'm kind of surprised. This one's standing up quite nicely. It's not wilting at all. So what we'll do is I will water it a bit, and then we'll be good to go. The other one's leaning a little bit, but it's that's just because of the way that plant grew. It's actually leaning a little bit to the wrong side, so it's all good. I'm just okay. So, do I have a green thumb or not? No, not really. I'm working on it. What happened to the first week's plants? A lot of them didn't work, just because it was winter at the time, and they just didn't like the weather. And to be honest, right now in Melbourne, it's been like winter weather then summer weather. Like today was a lot warmer. It was still kind of cloudy, but it was still a bit warmer than the past few days. No, it's spring now, so we're already in spring, so stuff should be growing relatively well. But I guess that's about it. Any questions before I close down the stream? Questions or comments or whatever? Go for it.
We don't need
No problemos. Hope you maybe learnt something. Play another game. This is week number 4. I will probably be doing another one next week because we're going to put some more herbs in. We're going to put some more herb seeds in. And yeah, then we'll see how we go. Thank you guys. It'll be up on YouTube. For anyone who missed